started the recording, Mike?
I did just now, yeah, it looks like it is going. And I'm gonna also start the video conference recording now too.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right. 7 o'clock. Call the April 15th DeSoto City Council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Lane,
Here.
Daniels,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Ritter,
Here.
Murdoch.
Here.
Thank you, council. Everyone's present, Mayor.
Okay. I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Our first items tonight are two proclamations. Our first proclamation is for Fair Housing Month. And I will read the proclamation. Celebrating 53 years of fair housing, whereas the Congress of the United States passed the Civil Rights Act of 1968, of which Title VIII declared the law of the land would now guarantee the rights of equal housing and opportunity, and whereas the City of DeSoto is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all, and whereas the fair housing groups and U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development have, over the years, received thousands of complaints of alleged illegal housing discrimination and found too many which have proved to be, upon investigation, to be violations of the fair housing laws, and whereas equal housing opportunity is a condition of life in DeSoto, Kansas, which can and should be achieved. Now, therefore, I, Rick Walker, Mayor of the City of DeSoto, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2021 as Fair Housing Month and express the hope this year's observance will promote fair housing practices throughout the City of DeSoto, Kansas. Our second proclamation is for Arbor Day. Arbor Day is April 23rd. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas 2021 is the 149th anniversary of the holiday, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beautification for our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy, beauty, and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Rick Walker, Mayor of the City of DeSoto, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 23rd, 2021 as Arbor Day in the City of DeSoto, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support the efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Okay. Our next item is our consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from our council meeting of April 1st, approval of pay ordinance number 900, and approval of fee resolution number 1045. Is there anyone that would wish to discuss an item on the consent agenda? Or would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Michael,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Murdock.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Okay, our next item is call to public. Mike, do we have anybody on the call? I don't see anybody.
No,
or on-
nobody but
on the meeting?
staff and council on the.
For the record, I would note that there is no one here other than staff so we will dispense with call to public tonight. Item 3, old business, we have none, so we'll get right to it. 4A, consider 2022 CBDG project. Brad.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's that time of year again where we need to proclaim April as Fair Housing Month, and that's part of the process that we go through for the Community Development Block Grant Program. The applications are due May 22nd, so the timing is upon us to begin the discussions on what projects the council may want to submit for consideration for funding. One thing that might note is I did go to the workshop yesterday for the CDBG project out at the Sunset office in Olathe. They have increased some of the demographic issues, and so it really limits us to really block group 1. That's really the only place, and actually it's going to be in Old DeSoto, the original platted tract. It's the only census block that projects can come from, really, to truly be considered or considered with any kind of chance of success. So with that, a lot of these projects that I put in the staff report were considered last year. The first 1 through 4 were projects that were on our sidewalk list. And they've been pretty heavy on sidewalks lately. At least the direction I felt we've gotten from councils. We're really trying to work on our connectivity throughout the community. And so that's what we've been working on, and I think quite successfully. I really like to see the usage that we got on the bridge project across to Kill Creek. We're also doing a sidewalk project on WIA this year, and then of course we're getting ready to bid the sidewalk project on 82nd Street. So we've done some really good work along those lines. Also, though, I've talked to Marshall Goodnight about waterline projects in the older part of DeSoto, and we do have some areas that are lacking pretty good. They're lacking the size that they need in a lot of the lines, and he had suggested a couple of projects that I think would go a long ways, especially in the Lakeview Heights area. Those water lines, actually, he said there's one short section that's 1.5 inches, but the line around, the loop around, is a 2-inch line. And we typically, when we put in new water lines, 6 inches is our minimum. So we'd like to see that area upgraded. Actually, on the map it's in your staff reports on page 3. It's the project number 1 with the blue. That's sort of the loop area that goes around Lakeview Heights. There's a water line that runs around that area. The area that he suggested was the blue circle area, or the item 2 circle area, which is a water line on Park Street, which is also a 2-inch line that he'd like to see replaced and upgraded to a larger capacity line. As you recall, the 2021 project did include a water line on WIA, which was also a 2-inch line, so that's going to be replaced. Actually, it'll be probably late this year or early next. Funds aren't typically released till September of the following year, so we try to get them done still in that same year, but sometimes it does lapse into the following year. So those are the waterline projects, and then of course we do have several sidewalk projects that I'd mentioned as well. Also, item 5 on the sidewalks, the 5th one, it's Delaware 82nd and Shawnee Street. We did receive some calls from residents that live along that street, or I received some calls. I also noticed that when we were doing the public notices, or I actually hand delivered and put the hangers up on the 82nd Street, I walked those streets, and I remember thinking to myself, these are in pretty bad shape. They really need some attention. And sure enough, probably about a month or two later, we started getting a few calls, and not a lot, but you know, just 2 or 3 people saying, you know, what's going on with the sidewalks? They're really barely walkable. So I added that project to the list. We will have a public hearing that's scheduled for the 6th of May, required by the CDBG process. And these are our staff's suggested projects. Certainly, council ultimately makes that decision, and you don't have to pick from this list. You can pick from the CIP or even add a project. We did submit in 2021. Actually, we did submit 2 projects. The sidewalk was a separate project, and the water line replacement was a separate project, even though it's the same street, same right of way. They'll be constructed at the same time, but they were 2 separate projects. So with that, I will stand for any questions you may have or any comments that you'd like to pass along so we can update the application.
Are these always, they always have to be construction projects? And my thought is like downtown engineering services to look at, update, revisiting the downtown plan, $80,000 or $100,000 would go a long ways on that kind of planning process, but I don't know if that.
Well, I don't know if it is specific. I know that engineering services are eligible under reimbursement. I don't know if, I guess I'd have to find out if a standalone consulting cost would be an eligible project item. I can ask folks out at Johnson County about that.
I mean, just another thought. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, we can
I
find
need to
out.
the council, but it is another pending project we have in that census block that would probably be of great benefit to everyone. Follow-up question then on the Park Street water line, is there a chance then it could be a similar sidewalk and water line? Is it,
Yes, we could just
since it's
certainly
only
do
a
that.
$60,000 water main project, maximize our
Mm-hmm.
application and upgrade the water line there as well, or the sidewalk while we do the water line? And then mill and overlay the street while we're at it. And
Get it all
New
done.
block.
Well, on sidewalk projects, number 3, which is kind of near that, I see a lot of kids walking to school kind of in that area with those trailer parks that are kind of, in that area and where they're coming, and where it reaches up with the park and stuff, I think, is there a sidewalk there already that just needs to be redone, or is there not a sidewalk at all?
I
in
don't
that
believe
area?
there's a sidewalk there, and I know what you're talking about. In the morning, you'll see, actually, the bus pickup is on 82nd and
Well, yeah, there's. a
or
bus
83rd
pickup
where it
on
curls in
83rd,
there.
Right there in front of the.
And there's
so-
quite a few kids that
So I mean,
use
that would be in, it looks like that, I mean, just the connectivity too of everything, that seems like a pretty good
Yeah,
place to have better sidewalks. I don't even know if there are any there right now. I don't think so,
No.
right?
What did she say?
So I,
Osage Street,
yeah, the
essentially, right?
Osage, basically
No, there are no
Osage,
sidewalks.
Yeah.
all the way up and around to,
On that street.
when you think about it, you're connecting the park to City Hall through that way too, because City Hall is up 84th Street there, and you're connecting out to Lexington Avenue. So
yeah.
it seems like it would be a good place to have a sidewalk that we don't have,
Probably one
any
on-
sidewalk.
On the west, north side.
Probably more, it looks like, right?
Yeah, a lot of driveways on the other side. Parking all that.
Another sidewalk I thought of, I don't know if our Ottawa Street project is gonna, so we'll have the new Ottawa Street, anything from 82nd to Main Street.
83rd?
Yeah,
yeah, there
that gap right there,
Would not be a connection there, would there?
that was one I thought, we'll have everything nice and connected, and then that would be like a missing link that would stand out.
Yep.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good one.
We don't have any shortage of
We
needs.
could spend a lot of money on sidewalks every year. And this is a good grant project to use for that, though. I
Probably better to use it on something like this rather than some engineering fee, you know, we get.
I think so. Those engineers, you know, they get all the money.
Planners are really the problem, right? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I guess one thing I did want to note that when you start your budget considerations, Mike has put in a increase in the sidewalk program to 60,000 in 2022, so
Yeah, it
we're,
went from 20 to 60. We did that with the CIP.
Right,
Yep.
and that might be enough, I don't know, that Ottawa block, the 83rd to 82nd, it might be enough to do a block, and our annual sidewalk program, I don't know.
The 60 grand might be, yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay, well, I don't think, no decisions need to be made tonight.
Right.
There's public hearings on the 6th, and then even
Okay.
then, we could wait till the following meeting to finalize, because we'd still have a few days to get the application in by the 25th.
Okay.
Is that the date you said, Brad, 25th?
yes, that is correct.
Any other comments before we move on from anyone?
Good ideas.
Then we will move on to your next item, approved parade permit for the Kansas Law Enforcement Ride for the Fallen.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Interestingly, I got a call from Kurt Yoder. He introduced himself as a detective from the Leawood Police Department. I'm like, I've been in Leawood for 6 months. What was this? But he explained that they are doing this Ride for the Fallen. They're going to start at the, I guess, Justice Center at New Century Airport and ride to, actually Overland Park. They're going to actually go through New Century, but they're going to ride to Topeka to the memorial. And we did have a discussion on whether we even needed a parade permit, because it's not really a parade. It's going to be vehicles. There'll be bicyclists that are sort of bookend by law enforcement vehicles and things like that. So they're really just passing through, but they will be, you know, obviously taking up some space and creating some traffic issues. So we just felt he was pretty clear he'd like to go ahead and take it to the council and make sure that all the T's were crossed and I's were dotted. And I told him we'd put it on the agenda for tonight. And really, it's like I said, it's a convoy of bicyclists that will be have public safety vehicles escorting them on their trip. They don't plan on being in DeSoto more than 10 to 15 minutes. They'll come up Kill Creek Road, hang a left on 95th, and then hang a left again on Lexington, and then head out of town on Old K-10 Highway, and then move towards Topeka. So it's a pretty straightforward, and there's no fees or anything like that, but and I thought we were gonna put it on the consent agenda, but Patrick reminded me that all these temporary use permit type things do need to have the full council consent, which the mayor does vote, so it needs to be a formal item on your agenda.
Does anyone have an issue with the Ride for the Fallen?
I'll make a motion. We approve the parade permit for the Kansas Law Enforcement Ride for the Fallen.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, council. Motion carried.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
See, Brad?
Brad's presenting the budget now?
Yeah, there'll be a pop quiz tomorrow for Brad in the budget.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, item 4C, receive and discuss first draft of the 2022 budget.
Yeah, so before I get started, I want to go as slow and as fast as you want to go. So let's have just kind of a discussion, stop me anytime. You know, I don't want to get into just plowing through this. If we have discussions and questions as we go along. It's a much different scenario we're facing this year than we were last year. Remember, we were shaking our boots about revenue declines, and we were projecting tax revenues to decline by 10%, and we were shopping services and really worried about future projections. None of that happened, as we've discussed, I think, throughout the last end of 2020. Sales tax revenues exceeded those of 2019 by about 3 or 4%. So those concerns didn't materialize. Building activity, construction activity, revenues from building permits, and all those were strong, exceeded our budgets, exceeded even the projections by a little bit. The only revenue decline we did have was in the Parks Department, and we knew and anticipated that, and that was for obvious reasons. So it's a much different scenario we find ourselves in this year. So much so that we can incorporate maybe even some, I think, what you would call expanded levels of service considerations, and those work just directly into policy matters that I think it's best for the council to kind of concentrate on. So I don't want to bog down too much in the minutia here, but I think the first probably housekeeping item to go over then is the budget timeline. I'm going to zoom down here to the timeline. I attached it to the staff report. We start internally really in the middle of February. We asked department heads to be thinking about next year's budget. So this is 2022. So they just got done getting used to putting 2021 on their requisition forms and stuff, and then we start asking them to project for 2022. So we started that in February. In May, department head requests came in to me, and we met with them throughout the course of May on that. So the first time then that the council formally sees the budget is today. So the first draft is submitted to you, and we have this meeting, the 2 meetings in May, and really throughout May to discuss general framework and general expected taxing levels before sometime around the 1st of June. For the last 4 years, that's been a pretty important time, because that's the time when we need to decide whether or not we're going to have a mill levy increase that might need a public vote. Well, that law has changed. So the property tax lid law has changed. Now, with the new legislation, it's called a tax neutral sort of, it's called a tax neutral law. It eliminates the need for a public vote if we want to raise the mill levy, but puts in place public hearing procedures, additional public hearing procedures that we would have to go through, such that the date, that decision date is still kind of sometime around the 1st of June. So it's just the less severe impacts if we decide to go over. You'll see.
There's also a notification, more of a notification process, right? I mean,
Yeah.
as I understand. Letters go out to people to let them know that potentially their taxes, we would be raising the mill or collecting more in taxes or whatever.
It's kind of a transparency thing. So
Right.
you have to send out letters to every tax.
Every
tax.
Every
address.
taxing jurisdiction has to send out a letter to everybody within their.
Right.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Mike.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't explain that very well, but that is the case. You may have guessed that, by the tone of kind of the intro, that I don't think we're going to be in that territory, anywhere near that territory on mill levy. We're not in the position of having to increase mill levy for anything, even though we have a bond issue coming up this year that we'll need to support, and a proposed bond issues next year in the CIP. Even with those, I don't think we'll be anywhere close to having to do that. But so anyway, so there's that kind of self-imposed June 3rd deadline where kind of the framework has to be done. And then June through August, we're holding the typical public hearing for the budget process. And then toward the end of August, we submit our budget to the county, and it's certified. So that's the schedule. Got some notes here. So first off, we want to talk about the year-end 2020 projections, and actually the end of March was the first quarter of 2021. Again, sales tax is strong. Delinquencies are essentially non-existent, as they were for 2020. The only thing we don't really know right now is recreation fees. You know, we haven't had those programs yet. Building trends are still strong. Building permits are still up. So it's good news on the revenue side. We've incorporated the 2020 numbers and the first quarter of 2021, and also projections for the rest of the 2021 into the 5-year budget projections that I've attached as Exhibit B. So Exhibit B to the staff report is the regular 5-year financial projections with those numbers put in place. I'll just zoom down here really quick. It'll look familiar once you see it. So we put these projections in our budget book, and you know, as you know, we do budget on a year-to-year basis, but really, in practice, what I do is kind of a 5-year budget. So everything that we implement, you know, unless it's it's a capital expenditure, it's a one-time thing. If we add somebody in a department, or if we increase a consulting budget line item because now we have a website to maintain or whatever, that gets carried through the 5-year projections. And the bottom line is we want to make sure that these year-ending fund balances stay within our policy of 30% of operating revenue. So really, we look at it on a 5-year basis and implement it on a 1-year basis. So with that in mind, the first thing that I like to do is look at revenues, I guess. But before I do that, this table here on the staff report, for these 5-year projections, we've got inflationary rates for commodity and expenditures, and we also have some general inflationary rates for revenue trends. These are the kind of the factors for each year, and you can see in general the revenue trends, we try to estimate those conservatively low, and the appropriations trends conservatively high. Keeps us out of trouble. So on the revenue side for the projections, we'll talk first about mill levy and valuations. At your places, I put a letter that the mayor actually received this month. And Danny and Kevin, you're online. I'll email this letter to you tomorrow as soon as I can. Essentially, this is the county appraiser's mea culpa on the mistake they made implementing an IRB tax abatement on Merck. They made an error in the fall of 2020. Essentially, that resulted in an appraised value of about $15 million, so an assessed valuation of $4 million being exempted from the tax rolls when it shouldn't have been. So what that meant for us is our 2021 tax bills that came out in November didn't show the mill levy that we thought it was going to show, somewhere around 24 mills for the city. It showed 25 mills. And the difference was this mistakenly exempted property on Merck. We've been working, as you know, with them throughout the fall and the winter, and the mayor even met with the chairman recently to try and get him to undo that. But there's some statutory restrictions that they have that once it's done, once it's certified, it can't be undone. So as a result, our valuation for last year, rather than being $89.7 million that we thought it was going to be, the actual official valuation was $85.7 million for the city. That's why our mill rate went from 24 to 25, because the way the statute works is we certify in our budget, we don't certify a mill rate, we certify how much tax we want to collect. So if the valuation goes down, the mill rate has to go up, because everybody has to give a little bit more to account for that. So your tax bills went up by, I don't know, somewhere probably under $20, but they went up. So what we have is a certified official mill levy that's wrong. It's 85.7 mils. An official mill levy for 2021 of about 25 from the city, where it should have been 24. So in this table, sort of passive aggressively, I've laid that out. And I think I want to put this in our budget, but I don't know if it'll make it there. But caveats there for 2021. In general, our valuations have gone up, and even with the mistaken valuation, our value did go up from 82.7 million in 2020 to 85.7 million in 2021, even the mistakenly low figure. It should have been 89 again. We received our valuations, the anticipated valuations from the appraiser in February for 2022, and they look to be about 96.2 million. So that's the number we're going to use within our budget process. That's the number we'll use. They'll firm that up around June, and we always get a letter from the county in June that says, here it is, here's your official valuation. By the way, our letter in June from last year said about 89 million. Except they made this correction or mistaken correction in the fall. So hopefully it'll be 96. It won't deviate from that substantially. It may deviate from that a bit. So that's, I think, all we need to say about that, even though we want to say more. The next paragraph here on the staff report talks about this new property tax lid law. We've done through those calculations. This proposed budget doesn't get us anywhere near the level where we'd have to send out those notifications. So I think we're gonna be good. The main projection really that drives mill levies, main projection for our revenue is sales tax. And this is one that's been on our minds heavily for the past 4 or 5 years at least, because our sales tax keeps exceeding what we thought it was, and it exceeds the county baseline, the county's sales tax increases. I have engaged Columbia Capital in that pursuit of trying to figure out why. And they gave me some draft results of their analysis. I think our main concern has been, what is it that's driving this? Is it something that's temporary that might go away? We need kind of an early warning system to see, if that's gonna. So what I asked them to do is take a look at that sales tax information from the past 10 years and see what the trends were and where our main sales tax contributors come from. This is still in draft form. We'll have it finalized maybe by the next meeting to present to you in full. But in short, it appears that primarily this is kind of the sales tax profile. 2009 is shown here in red and 2019 in blue, so that's a 10-year gap there. This is DeSoto's. Most of our sales tax comes from retail trade, accommodation and food services, information, utilities, wholesale trade. You don't get to construction until the 5th or 6th one. So it doesn't appear like the construction housing boom is what's driving this. So you compare that and our diversity to the overall county. This is for entire Johnson County, much less diversified. It's all retail trade. Not all, but you can see it's much less diversified countywide. So we're more diverse than the county, and it's doesn't appear to be something that is temporary in nature. So we'll have more on that later. I didn't have this information when I put the budget together, but based on what we had done in the past, projecting moderate increases moving for next year and then moving into the projection period. So this is a chart you've probably seen before. Sales tax revenue trends in the past. So this shows actual sales tax collections up to 2020. So that's the number that it peaks at right there in 2020, right about $2 million. The next number for 2021 is projected. So I've gotten the first quarter results. This is the number I'm projecting. It's less than last year, but I always want to remain conservative this time of year. So that number there is probably a conservative amount. And the following number where the red vertical line is the proposed budget for 2022. It's even a little bit less than what I'm projecting for this quarter. So it still remains conservative. And then from that point on, increases in the 2.5% to 3.5% per year on the sales tax number. I think it's still a very conservative position on sales tax. And this is an important one because, like I said, it's 2/3 of our general fund revenues. So that's an important one. Also important to understand, a portion of our sales tax goes into the debt service fund. So the city's portion of the sales tax, right now it's 9%, 9 cents I think, something like that. Well, 1.7 cents of that is just DeSoto's. and 0.75 cents goes directly to the debt service fund. These are the projections for the debt service fund. And because these are exceeding our expectations, the debt service fund has actually become very healthy in the past few years. And I'm projecting that we could lower the mill levy that we collect for debt service pretty significantly for next year, and even keep it that much, even with the capital improvement bonding that we're going to be doing. So this the mill levy for debt services, it factors heavily into the overall mill levy for us. So property tax revenues and mill levies in the general fund. So, you know, we talked about, we've been very proud in mill levies, overall mill levies declining the last 4 years. Been very proud of that. Of course, with the county's mistake last year, technically for 2021, it's going up a little bit from the previous year. Let me get to that slide. Well, we're not ready for that. So this chart here shows the overall mill levy for DeSoto. So in 2017, you see it comes down nicely. 21, this is what we budgeted, 24.029. The 25.1 is because of the county's mistake. And then the budget that I'm proposing here tonight is 23.2 mils. So you see it would still be a nice decline if not for the county's issue there. Mill levy for the general fund is actually going up a little bit from last year, but as we stated before, we're trying to do this on a 5-year basis. So this is what the general fund end of year balance would look like for the projection period. The actual projection for 2021 peaks there, and then the 2022 budget takes a little bit of a dip, but still we're moderating toward that 30% of revenues, percent of expenditures in the fund balance. So this is a good looking chart. You know, we've kind of rode this wave, and I hope to kind of continue that. What we don't want to do is collect more taxes than we need. So we do want to aim to reduce this fund balance down toward that 30% that's established in our policy. This is what the debt service and the mill levy and the debt service looks like. So 2021, this year, debt service mill levy is at 5.2. The budget you have in front of you, I'm proposing to reduce that to 4.0. And that will decrease the fund balance in the debt service fund, but you can see if we just keep it level, it comes back up by the end of the projection period. There's not really any need. We don't have a policy about fund balance in the debt service because the expenditures are set. We know what those are going to be. The chances for some unanticipated expenditure there is low. So we don't have that trend line to worry about. Law enforcement is a little bit of the same. We got just yesterday a projection from the sheriff's office that their fees will actually go down by about less than 1%, about 0.4%. And that calculation is based on activity level, call numbers and stuff in the city. So that's good news. Again, the law enforcement fund's very healthy. I think we can absorb a modest decrease from 5.8 to 5.2 and keep that level throughout the period. So again, here's this total mill levy picture. And that's, you know, that's good news to be able to report, except for that sore thumb right there at 25. Still gets me. In terms of other revenues, you know, we have franchise fees, court fees, planning fees, zoning fees, permits. We're projecting in summary those to increase modestly 2.45% in 2022. This is what that chart looks like. Again, these are actual numbers up to 2020, projected numbers for 2021, and then budget for 2022, and then on out. We did last year receive the stimulus funding, as you know, $557,000 for that, all of which was spent last year. There is anticipation, well, we're sure that we're going to get another $1 million in COVID recovery fund that was just from that act that was just passed by Congress this year. That money will funnel down, and I think it'll be about $1 million for DeSoto. It'll be deposited directly into our account, half of it this year, half of it next year. The use of those funds is somewhat limited. We'll have to have a completely separate discussion about what to do about those funds. None of that money, the revenues or expenditures, is included in the budget, in the draft budget. It's completely separate. I just left it out for now. So that's the revenue side. Any questions, any concerns, any thoughts about that before we dive into expenses? Nobody? All right, I must be talking too much. General fund expenses, and this is kind of where we start to talk about policy considerations with these revenues that are looking pretty rosy. We do have the opportunity to expand on some services. So on the personnel side, I'm showing a 4% wage increase. That'll be a cost of living of 1.8, and then the remainder would be discretionary merit increases. We always budget the full 4% for everybody. I go into a little bit of the thought process behind that. Unemployment is projecting to decline. It's high now because of the pandemic, but most of those jobs lost are at a pay rate under our lowest. So like in the job pool where we look at, the unemployment rate's really pretty low. Other communities in Johnson County are looking at 3 to 4% wage increases for 2022. Health insurance, we got good news on that. Looks like it increased by 3%, probably even less than 3%. For a while those health increases were close to double digits. So this is really good news for us on the health insurance side. Vehicle equipment and replacement, that program continues on. We did a pretty good overhaul on it this year, a complete relook of replacement costs and just scheduling of equipment. And that program is still worked into the budget. There's 2 additions that you haven't seen before. The first one will be a bucket truck, and we're showing it in the street department, but it's really going to be used throughout the departments. This is for hanging banners, doing stuff downtown. We're always needing a bucket truck around somewhere. So we've worked that into the equipment replacement program. We've also worked another pickup truck in the inspections department, because right now there's only 1 truck and we have 2 inspectors that kind of need that. Summer concert series for next year, increasing that budget from $20,000 to $25,000. Maybe one of the most significant increases is the road maintenance program. This is the one, it's in the street department budget. It used to be in our CIP and we decided we need to take it out. This is the fund that Brad and Ron use to do these street pavement programs. I've increased that from $425,000 this year to $500,000 next year and throughout the projection period. So that's a pretty significant increase in level of service, I think. It'll allow us to do more roads more often, just hopefully increase the pavement conditions throughout town. So that's good. Move the pool painting. We took it out of the CIP this year. It's in the budget, the 2022 budget, and we'll just make sure it's in there every 5 years. The other thing we did is implement a technology fund, and this is really for the replacement of computers. We had just budgeted this yearly and on an annual basis, but a lot of times what happens to us is we come to the year when maybe Patrick's computer and Lana's computer are due to be replaced, but they're both working fine and they neither one need it, so we don't use it and we just don't do it. But then the next year, theirs does need replaced, plus the ones we had scheduled. So often we'd like the ability to roll that money over. So this technology fund is much like the building improvement stuff, those funds that we've created 2 years ago. This is the same idea. So it'll go into that fund, and if we need to roll something over from year to year, we can. That money will still be available. We'll be able to budget on a more consistent basis over time. The other thing that we considered with this, and the funding has been beefed up, is replacement of all these tablets that we've now gotten so used to. We got them with COVID money. They're kind of free, but they're going to need replaced in 3 or 4 years, and we're all so used to them, so the money for that is in there too. The other thing I did in terms of a level of service increase is $40,000 in the admin budget for on-call city engineering services. And I think this is just to free up some of my time to do some more higher level administration, some EDC work, some higher level stuff, without getting bogged down with maybe plan reviews and things like that. 40,000 I think is just kind of a number out of the air a little bit, but I think it's a good start. what we do is hire, based on qualifications, hire an engineering firm that would serve as our go-to as these things come up. So that number is in there. Capital improvements, I didn't want to roll into this, we talked about that in detail in January and February. Just generally, the program's beefier. We went from spending 1.5 million, now we're spending 2.1 million. I've listed out the one-time sources of funding in 2022. The big one here is $1.1 million GO bond for a new water tower at Waverly. We also have GO bonds for Ottawa Street. We'll be constructing Ottawa Street next year. I've listed those projects also on the expenditure side there. I won't go through each one of those. The other thing I did administratively in the CIP budget is thrown in $1 million contingency allocation. And this is because we often have projects that carry over from one year to the next. And although the money in the CIP stays with the CIP, it doesn't have to get rolled out and rebudgeted every year. The funding is there, but the expenditure authority might not necessarily be there. So we've had a couple years where we had a project from 2018 that spilled over into 2019, but the expenditures weren't actually budgeted out of 19. Now we were okay because we had 19 projects that went into 20 and it kind of covered. But so the $1 million contingency there is just for that event that we have a big project that gets rolled over like that. No intent to spend it. It won't show up on the 5-year projections, but that's in there in case you see it and you wonder what the heck's going on. Quickly now, on water fund. So the water fund continues to be very healthy. 2014, since 2014, that fund balance has been increasing. It's a very healthy fund. This year, what we did on commodity rates, I'm showing a 1% increase, but as we did the last 3 or 4 billing cycles, we're not going to implement that unless we need to, and we haven't in the last 4 years. So we might not need to implement that next year either. On the expense side, the expenses are 9% higher than they were last year, but mostly we're showing there's a $75,000 transfer from the water fund to the debt service because of that 1.125 million for Waverly. Water fund's going to be paying for that, so we're going to issue the debt in the debt service fund. But this is the annual debt service payment. It's an estimate, but that's what it would be. So that number is in there. We've also added $53,000 for a new full-time position in the water fund, and most of the need for this is crossover, train that person for operation of the water plant. We only have 2 operators right now, and sometimes their schedules and vacations, we need to kind of backfill that. But mostly, KDHE starting next year is going to require us to implement a valve exercising program for the water distribution system. We have to exercise every valve every year, so that'll increase our need for manpower there. So those are the main expense additions. There's also some smaller stuff for the new vac unit. Similar to the general fund, 5-year projections show these fund balances moderating toward 30% of operating revenues. Sewer fund, kind of the same story. Healthy fund, good revenues, budgeting a 1% increase. Hopefully we won't need to do that. We haven't raised the sewer rate in 3 years, and hopefully that trend continues. On the expense side, it's really kind of an inflationary, just the 2.6% higher than last year. One item of note in the projections, so this doesn't affect 2022, but it will 24. I did show an addition of 1 full-time position in the sewer department for 2024, just to project that out into the future. That's it. That's the end. That's as exciting as I can make it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. I worry though, because I don't think I mentioned that the 2022 proposed budget, does include 1 more full-time position in the street department.
You did not mention.
I did not mention that. I don't know. I buzzed through it. I missed it in here somewhere. But so the budget includes 2 more full-time positions. One in the street department and 1 in the water department. Projections include another person in the sewer department in 2024. So hopefully that was enjoyable for you as it was for me.
Questions for Mike? Nope. It was good, Mike.
Okay, good. Well, you know, if it's light reading for you in the night, the things to kind of ponder are, we'll have more information on the sales tax stuff next year, Jeff White's analysis to get us a little more comfortable with that. And then these, the allocations that I've discussed here, starting on page 9 there, you know, the personnel, the health insurance, vehicle, those sort of main policy allocations are what to kind of consider if you want to think about it before the next meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Guess it's not really budget related, but, you know, with our rash of retirements lately, we have a long-term employee in the sewer department, at sewer/water, right?
Yeah.
Have we started thinking about a
absolutely.
transition?
Well, and that's part of the reason for the person in 2024, and that might move up to 2023. So yeah, Doug Smith, but he's not wired like the rest of us. I don't think he ever wants to quit. He just thoroughly, I think he'd come here and work if we didn't pay him. He just seems to thoroughly enjoy it. But you're right, you know, there's a succession planning that needs to take place there. And on the water side, I would say, you know, Marshall Goodnight, the foreman, really has taken, kind of acting as the water department sort of head.
They've
Really.
taken some of that responsibility that put
really
off
has.
with Doug. But, okay. Item 5, executive session, we do not have one, so we'll go to item 6, advisory reports. Mike, carry on.
Oh, no, I'm gonna spare you any report. I don't have it.
Okay. You don't want to update us on the Facebook chatter about the traffic control plan?
Don't turn left at Commerce. Yeah, so the roundabout project started, you guys know, they tore out the median, they did the traffic control. I'm pretty happy with the traffic control. We might actually talk, you know, the reason, so as you're going southbound on Lexington, the left turn lane is blocked off, and so there's no left turn allowed there to go to Commerce, to make a left on Commerce. The reason for that is because they were tearing out that median there toward that intersection. They needed some room there. I think maybe we can talk to them about changing that, getting that lane back open, and allowing that left turn movement again. I know the sheriff has been out. I don't know if he's issuing tickets or just warnings, but
Telling people to follow the signs. Pay
Yeah.
attention to the sign.
right.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that report, Mike.
Okay. You're welcome.
Patrick?
Nothing for me, thank you, Mayor.
Brad's gone, so we'll go to Lana. Anything from the clerk tonight?
I issued 3 mobile food vendor licenses this past week, so pretty excited that more and more people are wanting to come and bring their wares to DeSoto. So Dollar General has apparently been great about letting people come in and park on their parking lot, so. There was a funnel truck,
Funnel cakes?
funnel cake truck down there along with the Taco Villa truck on Tuesday, and after school, it was really, really busy down there with the funnel cake. So I think that people were pleased with their first time in the city to sell funnel cakes.
You want to throw your spitball idea out of about a food truck zone
Sure,
downtown?
yeah. You know, I asked the mayor, you know, why are they going to Dollar General? And do they have some deal with it? And my thought would be, since we're getting so much interest in it and activity, what if we made the space over by the fire station, let them use the parking stalls in the street, because then we've got the new paved parking area, and try to create a situation where we're attracting people into town to use it. I know when I went to Taco Villa last time they were here, and just kind of, you know, there were so many people in the parking lot, I was striking up conversation. Almost all of them were DeSoto. So it's local folks, so it's not like it would be out of the way. But it also was real disruptive, particularly with them in the Dollar General parking lot, because people were just kind of standing around everywhere, and the traffic in the Dollar General parking lot was a problem. So I was wondering about creating a food truck partnership, if you will, or a food truck area by using those spaces that we freed up. Yeah, those spaces right there.
Along the street, yeah.
Yeah,
where
so
those
they
two
could park on
cars
the
are,
street.
Parallel park there. or-
Parallel park there, so that the customers would walk up from the parking
Parking
lot
lot
side, so that you don't have people walking out in the street either. But you could do 2 food trucks there, parallel parked in that area. So, just a thought.
So part of the city code says it can't be on public right of way, but we could easily, if you want, I can bring an amendment back next meeting to change that.
The comment made to me about it was they like to be at that, in that area because it picks up all of the school traffic.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it to be a situation where it would take away from business because it wasn't visible, but the flip side would be to kind of create a little buzz downtown when the food trucks are here. So just a thought.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not-
like your idea.
you know.
I can understand though, even on Lexington, when they're over by the bank, it's just good visibility, a lot of people
Right.
driving
Yeah, 'cause
on Lexington, I
if you
think.
don't see it on Facebook or something, you may forget about, whereas
Mhm.
if you're driving by, it's like, oh, they're here.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the case with funnel cakes, of it's like, oh, funnel cakes now.
But your idea, Kevin, goes right along with my idea of the city owning that lot right there and putting spots in there. Not the one between the bank and there, see,
Yeah.
then you
Oh.
put some permanent places where they could park on either side and put little picnic tables and a whole little eating park in there.
yeah. Now,
The city doesn't own that.
I know. We need a developer to develop my idea in
Yes.
there.
Need a public-private partnership.
Yeah, yeah.
Another city park.
I obviously have a bent towards trying to create
Something down,
downtown.
whatever we
I'd
can
like,
do to, yeah.
I would like things that we can do to reinvigorate or keep up the momentum that we've got downtown.
So that's something to keep in mind. We may need to amend our food truck ordinance to allow them in designated areas to park within the right of way.
Maybe we can just have a discussion with these folks that we've given permits to.
Yeah, and in terms of partnering with them, if you will, leverage the city's Facebook page. And, I don't know how much advertising we can do, but
Chamber.
yeah, chamber.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, and then I'll let you carry on. Lana, you were done, right? I didn't want,
Yes, I was, Mayor, thank you.
if you had anything else.
No report. I just want to give a shout out to Mike's staff for the newsletters that go in the utility bill.
Oh, yeah, that's what we-
Both
yeah.
design and content. The latest one was roundabout information. I thought you did a really good job with giving the history and some facts and tying it to material that's out there on the website or YouTube or that kind of thing. But I've been really impressed. I imagine Whitney's doing the
Yeah.
production.
Oh, that's all. Yeah.
It's a really first class, just little one-page newsletter in the utility bill.
Good. We'll pass that along. Thanks.
So I got.
All right, thank you.
Does that go
Rob?
on the online one too?
Um,
'Cause I didn't-
2 questions. Mike, the Evergy substation they're talking about, do we have any idea of size? How big, I mean, it's on
You mean
28.
kilowatts, you
Yeah.
mean?
Or just
I'm
how
sure
large
I
it's gonna
have-
be?
I don't have it off the top of my
Okay.
head, but I'm sure I can get it, yeah.
The physical,
The physical, just,
Space
is
that
it
it
gonna be a
will
small
occupy.
substation, big
Oh,
substation?
no, the physical space, we do,
we
yeah,
have a site
I
plan.
mean, it's on
we
20.
got plans for that. I don't have them available right here to pull up, but I can
'Cause
certainly
I've
send
actually
it
had
to
a
you.
couple questions on that.
I'll just kind of try and draw a box around the general size of it where I think it's about, let me turn on the parcels.
Because the lot's 20 acres, right? Or the,
The whole lot's about 21.
200
by 300 fenced in area, and it's gonna be about 25 megawatts to start out with.
200 by 300?
I want to say it's something just really rough thumbnail there.
Okay.
Something about like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I had some calls on it as well, and that was the information that I received, was it would start out at 25 megawatts, but it could increase for the.
So just for perspective, how big is the one at 80s at Waverly and 95th. Just to
You
give
know,
perspective.
I haven't asked, it is a dual transformer, I can find it out for you, Rob.
It's about the same size
Yeah.
box.
Yeah,
Looks
the
like
box-
400 on that side, 300, yeah, about the same size.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I said, that can give them a perspective of if they're
What is-
thinking that one kind of size comparison.
Yeah, and of course, the one that's being planned has some fencing and some landscaping and
Mhm.
stuff, so might look a little better, at least initially, than this one.
Okay.
More visible though, as from the highway for sure.
Yeah. Any update on Landa's replacement? Not that we're anxious to see her go.
I don't have anything I'm prepared to share, but
Okay.
I will by next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Lori?
No, I think I had something, I forgot it. So I'm gonna wait.
Let it go.
I'll wait till next time. I don't remember what it
There
is.
you
Thank
go.
you, Mayor.
Danny, anything for the council tonight?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
All right. Kevin Ritter?
I just have, one, I guess it would be the safety concern. The equipment that's being used at the roundabout, it's being parked, I know they're trying to not park on the sidewalk, which is placed there, but at night, it's really dark there, and it's really close to the road. Can we see if they'll add some cones or reflective, stuff so somebody doesn't run in the back of that backhoe?
Yeah, no problem. I know exactly, yeah, so, yep, I know what you're talking about. We'll get some flashers on it or something.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Mayor, I don't have anything either, so.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
This conference is no longer being
No.
recorded.